Most yearly planning and goal setting is a complete waste of time. I mean, most common approaches are like talking about, let's set the goals for the whole year. By Q4, things have already changed and your goal planning and setting has become irrelevant. So if you want common results, you can certainly listen to that common advice. But if you actually want laser focus this coming year and you want to set priorities and goals that actually get achieved, then I'm going to show you my focus planning system in this video. This is the very system that I've used to build multiple 7- and 8-figure companies. And it's the exact same planning method I give to my clients who are all building 6-, 7-, and 8-figure businesses as well. My name is Drew L. I'm the CEO of Healthpreneur. So if you want to get further ahead this year, this focus planner is going to help you. Now, if you want a copy of this planner for yourself, you can grab it in the link in the description below. But nonetheless, in this video, I'm going to walk you through it step by step. Whether you have the planner or not, I'm going to show you this exact system so you can execute it in your business. So let's start off by just talking about why most planning methods fail. I believe they fail for a few reasons. Number one, they're too far out in the future. They think about, okay, well, what are we going to do on a daily basis over the next year without first and foremost getting clarity on what is the overall direction we're heading in. So they're focused on very minutia that's going to change dramatically over the course of 12 months. Think of ChatGPT and AI. I mean, 3 to 4 years ago, it wasn't even on our radar. Now it's part of our daily life. So if you're setting goals for 9 months down the road, so much is going to change that is going to make a lot of that goal setting irrelevant. So instead of worrying about what we're going to do in Q2, Q3, Q4, we want to focus on what we're going to do in the next 90 days and then reverse engineer from that to be very, very clear and focused on what you can do starting today and every day to move closer to that. So our process, I'll just show you here. So this is what our process looks like with the focus planning method. At the very top, we start off by getting clear about what is the vision. We call this a vivid vision, and there's many methodologies for how to do this. But just think of it this way. Don't worry so much of the time frame. Just think of like 3-5 years down the road to the best of your ability. What is the big vision you want to achieve? Now, this is a separate exercise in and of itself, and I've got other videos on the channel that talk a little bit more about this. But you think about like what's the life you want to live? What's the business you see yourself building? And if you can start with that big vision, that's going to be one boundary. So we're going to set very long out big vision, and then we're going to come back into the immediate. We're not going to worry about everything in between because so much can happen in between now and that big vision from coming to reality. So that's the first step, is we want to have a general North Star direction of where we're headed. So that's the first step. Once we have that, we're going to focus on coming back into 1-year goals. We call these the focus 4. From those focus 4, so you're going to set 4 goals. And again, I'm going to walk you through this. So as we're going through this together, you're going to want to pause the video and actually do some stuff here. We're going to focus on, okay, what do we want to achieve this year? 4 things, not 5, not 6, 4. We're going to dive into this in a moment. And then from there, we're going to reverse engineer down to the 90-day sprint that we have control over to a larger extent to move us closer to that destination. Now, that's the overall plan. But before we get there, I like starting always with something I call the best life number. So the best life number is really simple, and it's right here early on in the planner. And just in case you want to see what the planner looks like, this is what it looks like. It's 214 pages of awesomeness, but I'm showing you the PDF version. Visually, it's a little bit easier on the video. Okay, so what I want you to do here is, first and foremost, is you're going to map out everything you want to have or experience. Okay, so that could be anything: personal trainer, private chef, new car, new house, travel, specific vacations, whatever it is. Okay, I want you to just pause this video and do this with me. Okay, so just take out a sheet of paper. If you don't have the planner, it's fine. Just write down everything you want to have or experience. Okay, once you got that, you're going to just give it a rough estimation of how much it's going to cost you. So if you don't know the exact amounts, that's fine. Just put down whatever you can think of or do a bit of research on the internet. And what we're looking at here is the total amounts. So if let's say you want to buy a house and the house is $1 million, even though you might put down $200,000 and then have a mortgage, I want you to put down the full amount. It's just going to make the math a lot simpler for this. So what you should have as you're going through this is you're going to have a list of a bunch of stuff you want to have, do, or experience. You're going to write down exactly what it's going to cost you. And at the end, you're going to have a total here. So let's say that this total is $1 million. Now that might be a little bit low, but whatever. You're going to take that total amount and you're going to divide it by 12. So if the total amount is $1 million, your monthly total is going to be $83,000 per month. Okay. So that's going to be what we're getting to at the end of this sheet here, of this page, is we're getting very clear at a granular level about everything you think you want in life to have experience, do it, all that stuff. And now we're breaking it down to how much it's going to cost you on a monthly basis. Okay. Now, as you do this, if you're like a lot of the clients that I work with, what you'll find is one of two things as I grab a sip of my coffee here. By the way, planning is always better when you've got good coffee, right? So one of two things is going to happen. You're going to look at this number and you're going to be like, holy cow, that's actually a lot less than I thought it was. This gets me excited. I can see this coming to life. Or that number is a lot higher than you were thinking of. And you're like, how the hell am I going to make this happen? Okay, so either camp is totally fine. Next, we're going to look at how to actually reach this best life number. I call this the best life number because it's about achieving your best life, making it real. Now, what we're going to do is, because you're a business owner, some of the stuff you wrote down can be personal or business related things. For the sake of this, I'm just going to make it super simple. And we're just going to assume that everything is in some way, shape, or form has to be accounted for business expenses and taxes. So what that means is, let's say that we had our BLN, so our best life number for this previous page was $83,000 a month. So I'm going to put $83K per month. Now, there's going to be business cost percentages, I'm going to keep it really simple for you. All we're going to do is we're going to multiply this by 3. Okay. And we're going to multiply it by 3 just to be super conservative, to say we're going to account for other business expenses and taxes and all that kind of stuff, so that for this amount of money that we want personally to do whatever we want with, we just want to make sure that everything else in the business is taken care of. Okay. So don't worry about the technicalities here. I just want to keep it super simple for you. So if we do 83,000 times 3, that's about, $250 a month, I think, somewhere in that neighborhood. So we're calling this the business best life number. So now the business best life number is $250K per month. Okay, so that should actually go there. So what this does is you look at your business, and your business is doing $250,000 a month. And that accounts for the taxes you owe to the government, the expenses you foresee. And we're saying within that, 83,000 is for your personal, like whatever you want to do, right? All the stuff you wrote down. Because if all we did was say, oh, I only have to make 83,000 a month, and then you make 83,000 a month, you're like, oh shit, I actually have to pay taxes, I have expenses to cover. I actually need more money than I thought. So the 83 is going to help you achieve those things you wrote down. The 250 per month is what the business needs to be doing in order for the 83 per month, in this case, to be realistic for you. Now, also understand that a lot of these expenses you can run through your business. Like I don't run anything personally. I live personally very broke. I take out the minimum I need to survive, i.e. mortgage, car payments, food, the basic necessities, and everything else I run through my business. So if you travel, that's a board meeting. So even though, again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of what's taken out personally versus business here, but hopefully this gives you clarity about what you need to be making on a monthly basis selfishly for those things you wrote down, as well as from the business perspective, so you can make those a reality. So that's the first step here, is we're getting very clear on the things you want to bring to life. And then we boil that down to knowing exactly how much it's going to cost you. The clearer you are, the faster you go. Clarity is power. We're no longer vague. We're no longer in the clouds. We know exactly what it is we want, and we know exactly how much it's going to cost us, and we know exactly how much our business needs to generate to make that true. Pretty cool, right? From there, all you're going to do is thinking about, okay, if I have to make $250,000 a month, and let's say I have a coaching program that is, we'll just put coaching, and it is $5K. How many units do I have to sell to make $250,000 a month? So in this case, that's going to be 50, right? 50 new clients per month to make $250 a month from the business perspective. So if you're thinking, how on earth do I make that happen? It's all good, right? Because that's what we're going to go through in this process. So that's really where it all starts. We start out by casting a bigger vision, right? Which is a little bit of a separate process here. You're just kind of like thinking about everything you want in life. Then we're bringing it down a little bit more specific by mapping out your best life number, getting clear on what you want, how much it's going to cost. And now we're starting to get into the more tangible things of like, okay, so now I know how much I need to make in the business. Here's my product suite. Here's how much I charge for things. And here's how much of those I need to sell to make that number a reality. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start to bring that into actual practical terms. So the first thing we're going to look at is what I call the focus for. So this year's goals. So your vivid vision, you're just going to put in here, right? So just very simply, right? Whatever that vision is for you. But here's the thing that I really want you to focus on. You can tell the name of this, like the theme of this planner is the focus planner for a reason. You don't want scattered ideas. You want focus, because focus is powerful. We want 4 main goals for the year. I don't care what they are, okay? Now these goals are going to be here, here, and here. Now the way that you set this goal needs to be black or white. Anyone outside of yourself should be able to identify whether this goal was achieved or not. So as an example, I'll use something not related to business. Run a 100-meter sprint in under 10 seconds, right? So that might be a goal. It's very clear. Like I ran it or I didn't in that time frame. Why do I want to run that? Because I want to be at the Olympics. I want to run faster than Usain Bolt. Again, I'm not a sprinter. I'm just making this up. And what's the deadline? The deadline doesn't have to be at the end of the year, right? Some of these goals might be 3-4 months out. So you can think of a deadline. Okay, well, for this goal, it's going to be this deadline. But what this does is it starts to really put into focus what is a priority and what isn't. So I'm not here to tell you what your goals are. That's for you to determine. Jim Rohn famously says, reasons come first. So reasons are going to flow from the goal. So think of the goal as the what, and the reasons are the why. Your why for any specific goal needs to be compelling. So if this takes the longest part of your journey in this process, that's okay. Because if you're setting goals because someone else thinks they're important for you, you're not going to work towards that. Like if you set the goal of making $1 million, cool. But like, why? Why is that important to you? Why? As many reasons as you can possibly think of, or one really compelling reason that's going to get you out of bed in the morning, that's going to help you move through the ebbs and flows of business, the up and down roller coaster of emotions you're going to go through, right? Because if you don't have these, if you're not connected to what you're trying to achieve, it is going to be so much easier to just give up on it when the going gets tough. So again, the focus for your 4 main goals for the year. You might have smaller things that are going to get done in that process, but these are the 4 big things that everything else is going to funnel towards. So if we go back up to our roadmap here, this is where we're at right now, is we're identifying what are the outcomes that we are shooting for, right? These are the things that you want. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to identify what are the milestones, the 90-day sprints that you need to accomplish in order to make what you want a reality. So let's go to that next. So we have your focus for. Now we're going to look at the 90-day sprint. So let's just say that we're starting Jan 1 and the 90-day sprint is going to finish on March 31st. So we'll just put down Jan 1, March 31st. Now, what you're going to do as a reminder is you're going to jot down the focus 4 goals here, 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 here. We're always keeping them top of mind. Now, each of your focus 4 goals may not have equal weights at all parts of the year. Maybe there's a heavy push on one of them to start. It depends on what the deadlines are and what, you've prioritized. So those we're just going to kind of like start those off as a reminder. Then what we want to do is want to really get clear on what are the metrics that actually matter. So this is really, really important for you to think about. And if you don't know, then obviously spend some time, get some clarity on this, or work with someone who can show you what the metrics are that actually matter. I'll give you an example. Maybe about a week or 2 ago before this video, we're mapping out our content strategy for 2026. Personally, I believe that 2026, not only do I believe that I've committed to making 2026 our breakout year when it comes to content and really building our brand in a way that overshadows what we've been able to do with ads. So one of the metrics is, well, we could look at followers, right? How many followers or subscribers on YouTube do we have? But this is a lazy metric. And I think it's a dangerous metric because it actually doesn't inform us about other things. So as an example, a much better metric for us to look at from a content perspective is save rate, share rate, or view velocity. How quickly do views increase on a specific piece of content? Because if we focus on that, the followers will flow, right? The followers will follow those leading metrics. So number of followers, I would consider to be like a lagging indicator or trailing indicator, very much like revenue is, right? I want to make $1 million. Cool. Like part of this process is not to focus just on the outcome because you can't control the outcome, but it helps to have clarity on what is an important metric that relates to that outcome, because then you focus on the process to improve that metric. And if the process improves the metric, then the outcome, make $1 million or have more followers, whatever the number is, becomes inevitable. I hope that makes sense. So what we want to do here is identify what those metrics are. So for instance, in a coaching business, it might be something like number of calls booked per week, right? It might be close rate percentage. It might be lead to call book ratio. It might be profit percentage. Like whatever metrics you feel are important for you based on your goals, right? This is the thing. If you're running a live event, like when we used to do our big Healthpreneur live event, that was one of our focus 4 goals. So the metric related to that would have been something around, number of attendees or tickets sold, etc. Okay. So your metrics are going to flow from the focus 4 goals. You'll have a metric. Let's just look at, I'll just use an example here. So let's say that we look at number of calls booked, right? In a coaching business, there's a direct correlation between the number of calls booked and the amount of clients and revenue you make. It's pretty much linear. Now, obviously there's cancellations and no-shows, but if you book more calls, you'll make more money, guaranteed. So let's say a 1-year target is 1,000. Okay, so 1,000 calls booked this year. A quarterly target is 250, right? That's the easy way of just doing the math on that. You take the yearly target divided by 4. It doesn't account for the fact that there's momentum and growth over the year. So maybe you have Q1 that's 150, Q2 is 300, Q3 is like 350. So it can certainly change. It doesn't have to be exactly the same in every quarter, but at least it gives you a starting point. And then if you're, depending on where you are in the year as you're doing this, because remember, this planner is for each quarter. So for a year, you'd have 4 of these. So if I'm looking at doing this 90-day sprint in Q2, what I would be writing in this last column is where am I year to date with this metric? So let's say that I'm at 230 year to dates at the start of Q2. My target for Q1 or per quarter was 250. So now I know roughly where I am if I'm off, if I'm ahead of the curve. So those are the metrics. The metrics are going to dictate, or they're going to be like the dashboard on your car. Okay, so now we look at the next step, which is the quarter's top goals, priorities, projects. So as it says here, these should move you closer to your focus 4. Like we're only doing things that move you closer to one of or more of the 4 things you said are imperative for you to achieve this year. Now, goal, projects. Okay, now there also can be a little bit of a process here. So a project is something that's done once. A process is something that repeats itself over and over again. Now you can certainly turn a project, or there's an overlap between projects and processes sometimes, but I don't want to get too granular here. The goal here is, okay, what am I going to focus on in the next 90 days to move me closer to that focus 4? So let's say that, I'm going to just come back up here. And let's say that we wanted to, we're going to enroll. So one of the goals is enroll 200 clients, okay, at whatever, 5K each or whatever your main program price is. So let's just say that's one of the big objectives. You can see here that the focus 4 lends itself into the actual metric for that thing. So the metric here, you could say, well, it's number of clients enrolled, right? So sometimes the focus 4 goal is also the metric. Doesn't have to be, but in this case, it could be. So here it would be, number of clients enrolled, which is going to naturally flow from calls booked. Okay, so here, let's say that we have, so the goal, and again, there's different ways of organizing and kind of mapping out some of these goals. So I'll give you a couple examples. So with this goal of enrolling 200 clients in Q1s, right? So this quarter, what's the goal? We could say the goal is to enroll 50 clients. Hopefully you can read my writing. Okay, so that could be a goal. That can be a target. Okay, it either happens or it doesn't. Now, I'm going to show you how you break this down a little bit. Okay, so why do we want to do this? Well, we want to map this out. That's important. And the deadline, let's say, is March 31st. Okay. That would be an example of a goal. I'm going to break this down a little bit further, and I'll come back to showing you how I might set this differently based on whatever it might be. So next thing we're going to go into is this quarterly goal project. So I'm going to map this out in a second, but just coming back to the roadmap. So what we've just done is we've identified the 90-day sprint. And now what we want to look at is what are the things that are going to happen on a process basis, the things you have control over. Like you don't have control over directly enrolling 50 clients. Like there are things that are going to lead to that. So these are the things that you control that help you accomplish the milestones of the sprints for the quarter that allow you to have what it is you want to get you closer to those focus for 1-year goals and the bigger vivid vision. Hopefully you're tracking with me so far. Good? All right. Hey, by the way, if you're enjoying this, I've got tons of other videos on the channel to help you grow your business. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Okay, so let's get back to where we are here. Okay, so let's look at taking the goal of 50 clients enrolled. Okay, so in this case, it's 5K each. So that you'll notice that each project, so we have projects that are here. Okay, so there's 4 projects potentially. This one is the first one. There's a second one based on what you wrote down. There's a third one. So this process will be repeated for the number of projects that you have deemed necessary to move you closer to the focus for goal that it falls under. So it's kind of like a Russian nesting doll. Kind of everything kind of falls into its place to support the bigger thing. Okay, so when we look at the project of enrolling 50 clients in the quarter, what are the milestones you need to reach and the related tasks to complete this project or hit this goal? So notice that complete this project or hit this goal. This is more of a goal than a project. Does that make sense? Now, I'll give you an example of a different type of project. So this here is a goal. When I was creating this planner years ago, a project would have been complete, focus, planner, and send to print. So notice the difference there. Like it's less of a goal in terms of like enrolling this many clients and a specific metric. It's like, get this thing done. Okay. It could be, like in our clients who work with us in HBA, it could be launch my perfect client pipeline, right? Build my coaching curriculum. Like that can be a goal. Sorry, that can be a project, more of a project, although it still is a goal, but it's less quantifiable, if you will. It either got done or it didn't versus enrolling 50 clients, which is more of a goal from a numeric perspective. So hopefully you see the difference there. Okay, so let's talk about the 50 clients enrolled. Okay, so what are the milestones that have to happen in order for that to be in place? So let's say that we're starting off, relatively early on in the process, and you're just kind of sitting back and saying, okay, how on earth do I enroll 50 clients? Now, if you don't know, then you don't know. Like this is why obviously, we reach out for mentorship and coaching. So if you came to work with me and I gave you some feedback on how to enroll 50 clients, it might look like this. So I don't know what you have in place right now. The first thing we're going to do is build webinar. Okay. So why a webinar? Because I think it's the single most important asset for any business to have. And when I say webinar, I mean evergreen. It's running 24/7. It's one piece of content that encapsulates your entire philosophy of how to solve the problem you help your clients solve. You have that. And you don't theoretically have to create any more content if you don't want to. We have clients that have built 7- and 8-figure businesses with one webinar. I'm not discounting the importance of content, like having content like this go out is certainly valuable, but you don't need it as a starting point to hit 50 clients. So how do we do that? So building a webinar, what are the daily tasks to make that happen? Well, in this case, there might not be weekly and monthly tasks. This might just be daily tasks. This might just be something like, in our case, meet with copywriter, like on our team as an example. But that's going to be a one-off type of thing, right? So please understand that some of these milestones, they're not like these tasks are not necessarily repeated tasks all the time, but in some cases they will be, as I'll show you in a moment. So daily tasks, meet with copywriter, clarify real problem and map out model. Okay, so these might be 3 of a few more things that we want to get clear on to build the webinar. Weekly tasks, Probably nothing. Monthly tasks, probably nothing. Like you build the webinar and it's done, right? Then you review it over time, you can optimize it, whatever. But for now, that's milestone number one, like build webinar. Okay. Second thing is, and again, we'll give this a deadline. So we'll call this like Jan 10, if you can see that. Milestone number 2 is something like write 10 ads. Okay. So writing 10 ads, what are the daily tasks? Well, the daily task might be write 1 ad per day. Now that might be a daily task to you for the rest of your life. To be honest, it's something I recommend all of our clients do. Not necessarily just writing an ad, but write 1 page to your audience. It's just one of the ways you become a thought leader is by just articulating your thoughts and clarifying your philosophy. So that might be a daily task. I'm going to just leave it at that. So we built the webinar, write 10 ads. Milestone 3 is builds funnel pages. Okay, so let's say you can do this by whenever dates you want. Build funnel pages. What are the daily tasks? It might be set up GHL, go high level. There might be a few things that are going to happen. Now, again, you can see that this is more project-based, but some of these daily tasks, weekly tasks, monthly tasks, these are more for process-oriented things, which may or may not make as much sense depending on the goal you've set. So again, in this case, I'm going to actually come back to this. So this one here, I'm going to say this is done and done. Now, if, for instance, we, instead of just saying write 10 ads, what if it was something like in the quarter, I'm going to write 60 ads. So maybe it's write 1 ad per day. Weekly task might be review top 10 ads, top 10% of ads and iterate, right? That might be part of the process. And then the daily task might be manage/prune ads. Takes about 5 or 10 minutes, right? So this, again, it depends on how you want to break things down, but hopefully this gives you a bit of sense. And again, like this doesn't have to be perfect, right? Like as you can see, like even as I'm writing this stuff down, the purpose of goal planning and setting and this kind of stuff is not the actual stuff that's being written down. It's the fact that you're thinking about it. That's the most important thing here is that you're actually taking a moment to think about what the hell am I doing? What am I working towards? And getting some semblance of like, cool, I have more or less some clarity about what I'm doing. Okay, so then the goal or the project outcome, I wouldn't put down like 50 clients enrolled from that necessarily. So remember this, the goal or the project is 50 clients enrolled. This is, I would say, in this, how I've mapped this out, this is just part of this. So here, the goal or the project outcome might be PCP launched, right? So perfect client pipeline is launched. And that with ad spend and time and skill and, et cetera, will lead to the 50 clients enrolled if you have enough volume, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so again, why are we doing this? What's the deadline, et cetera? And you can see here, this is 1 page. We're not talking about having 50 pages of what we're doing here. So all we're trying to do here at a high level, and again, this will get more granular on a day-to-day basis as we go through this. So all we've done here is we've looked at, okay, well, what are the 1-year goals? So again, just coming back to the top, what are the focus 4 things? What are we going to focus on in the next 90 days? Let's break those 90 days down to the handful of bigger objectives, projects, or goals that we're going to work towards. And then to the best of our ability, what are we doing on a daily or weekly basis to make those a reality, right? So that's pretty much what we've mapped out here. You with me so far? Okay. So let's move on now. I'm not even going to worry about project number 2, project number 3. I'm just going to say, okay, we have project number 1, we're going to move on. Okay, so for the quarterly activity inventory, you're going to write down what are the important things you're going to work on, and then what are the tasks, right? We just talked about the tasks on the quarterly basis. So it might be write ad daily, prune ads daily. Right? So these will be the daily things you're going to work on. Maybe once a week, it's going to be review best ads. On a monthly basis, right? It might be like update tracking numbers or whatever it might be. So you're going to we're just getting clear on everything we've already created, right? Everything we've already mapped out. We're bringing it down to this 1 page here. And we're saying, what are the things that we're doing on a recurring basis, daily, weekly, monthly, or maybe quarterly? What are the non-recurring things? Right? So what are the one-off things? So that might be, as an example, create and record webinar, right? That's a one-off non-recurring task. It's done. Okay. So, but again, to the best of our ability, we've clarified what has to happen this quarter in order for us to move forward toward the goal. Okay. Now, as we get clear, okay, so now we know what we're doing for the quarter. Now we're going to get into the week and the day. So let's say that this is Jan 1 to Jan 7th. What are the metrics or outcomes that will make this week a major success? So now again, we're coming back to the metrics that matter, the metrics that you set based on the goal you're looking for. You already most likely have a quarterly target and a metric or outcome. So let's just say that this is calls booked. This is clients enrolled, just to keep it simple. Quarterly target, we said 250. For this, we'll say 50. This week's goal, we're going to go for 15. And this, we're going to go for 3, right? As an example. Okay, so now we're going to say so now we're clear on the outcomes for the week. What are the tasks and projects that need to be completed this week? Remember, you don't need to reinvent the wheel here. We're basically saying we've already identified most of the stuff that we have to do. Now, the beautiful thing about when you have a business that is well systemized, you're not making things up out of thin air. You already have a roadmap. And now it's simply taking like write ads daily. So it might be write 5 meta ads, right? That might be one of the things we're working on this week. Okay. So all we're doing here is we're taking, okay, the quarterly stuff. Now we're bringing it down to, okay, this week, based on the stuff we've already committed to, what are we doing? Okay. So we have a list, like you might do this on a Sunday as an example, preparing for the week. So now we get into the day, the daily basis. So the date, we'll just say that this is a Monday. I don't even know if it's January 1st, but let's just say it is. What are you doing on the Monday from 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9? Map out the day in advance. This is the key. You don't wake up in the morning and do this. You do this the day before. So let's say that for me, I work out typically between 12 and 3 p.m. So typically around 2 p.m. So naturally right away, I'm going to put in my workout is right there. Okay. If you go for a walk first thing in the morning, what time are you going for a walk at? 6 a.m.? I'm going for a walk. When are you doing your focus work? When are you doing the writing of the 5 ads, right? Or one of the ads. So maybe let's say that 7 a.m. is write 1 meta ad. Let's say between, you've got coaching calls, 3 p.m., coaching call, whatever, 4 p.m. you have a sales call you're hosting, right? Everything that's on your calendar, you're just going to write this out. If it's reactive or proactive, I'm a big fan of having the first part of your day being creation. So you're going to create, and this is more about respond, which is essentially calls, sales calls, coaching calls, etc. Because this is when we're freshest, right? This is when we're freshest early in the morning, as opposed to having a busy day and then trying to create stuff later in the day. So you'd map this out on the day before. So let's say you shut your day down on, 4 o'clock on an afternoon. Take 5 minutes to map out tomorrow at that point. And the idea here is that you don't want to necessarily have your calendar, your day doesn't have to be chock block full. I mean, some people love 15-minute increments. I have nothing on my calendar. I have one call every other day. And then it's just, for me, it's I want big chunks of nothing space so I can just create, YouTube videos, right? For me, I'm a creator. That's what I love to do. Okay. I'm a maker. I like to make stuff. I don't like to be in meetings all day long. Therefore, my life and my calendar do not reflect that in the slightest. However, there was a moment in time where I had to do more of that stuff. When I started Healthpreneur, I was doing 4, 5, 6 sales calls per day to get this sucker off the road. Okay. So you have to understand where you are on the journey and understand that there are just some things you're going to have to do no matter what. So that's what the day-to-day looks like. So this is going to be, if I'm opening up the planner, you have the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So the right-hand side, I actually probably should have started there, which is, what are today's top 3 priorities? These are the 3 things that have to get done today, or if you're setting the goals for tomorrow, these dictate the day. So you actually start with these, and then you put them into where they go in terms of timing. My most important goals, you're going to write down, what are you doing? Right? What are you working towards? This could be the vision stuff. This could be your focus 4. This is just your daily reminder of why am I doing this? What am I working towards? What am I after? And so you start with this right-hand side of the page to get clarity on the most important things, because otherwise you just get busy doing stuff. And then you take these 3 things, not 30, the most important things, and you put them in your day, ideally early on, all the way through. Okay. So early in the day, if you get everything done by 12, your day is done, right? And so that's what the daily looks like, right? So again, then we repeat Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. And I'm just going to fast forward to the end of the week. Okay, so at the end of every week, we have a weekly review. And this is a really great thing to do on a Sunday where you're simply looking back over the week and you're looking at, okay, did I review my best life number, my 1-year goals, my quarterly projects, my activity inventory, right? Just a quick recap. Like, what are we working towards? What are we doing? My biggest 3 wins this week, this, and this, whatever they are. My biggest learning, my biggest obstacle. What are the 3 ways I can overcome this obstacle and or who do I need help from? I need support from. What's the one thing I'm doing that somebody else should be doing and can do better than me? Who's that person? It's some good reflection exercise for us control freaks who want to do everything. What has to happen this coming week for me to feel happy with my progress? So at the end of every week, taking a couple minutes, grab a coffee, do a little bit of an inventory and introspection about where you've been and where you're going over the coming week. And then we follow into week 2 with the same process. So in the planner, as I've mentioned, it's the same process over and over and over again. You'll have 12 of these weeks. And at the end, you'll have a quarterly review, which is not too dissimilar from the weekly review. And that is how you look back over the quarter. You start to look ahead to the coming quarter, and then you start to map stuff out in much the same way that we did here. So what I'd recommend, if you haven't done so already, is rewatch this video, right? If you don't currently have our focus planner, again, there's a link in the description where you can grab it. If at the minimum from this video, while you're waiting for your planner to arrive, just do this stuff on a sheet of paper, just to get like momentum. Like never leave the side of setting a goal without doing something towards attainment, as Tony Robbins famously says. And hopefully this process gives you a lot more clarity because we're focused on the short term of things we can control that have been mapped, reverse engineered and mapped to the most important things. So remember, we focus on the big vision and then the 1-year goals, the focus 4, and then we don't care about what's happening in Q2, Q3, Q4. We're just like, I know where I'm going. What am I going to do in the first 90 days to move me closer to that? Once that quarter is done, then we simply look at, okay, now I'm into the next quarter. What am I going to do with this 90 days, this sprint, to move me closer to the big objective? And we keep moving in these chunks, and we don't worry about what's going to happen in 8 months because we don't even know, right? The things are going to change. But if we know more or less what we're working towards, and every day we start attacking that, then the likelihood of those outcomes becoming real, it becomes inevitable. So I hope this process has been helpful for you. I promise if you follow this process, it will transform the way you approach your business. It'll transform the way you look at setting goals and going after them. And hopefully it just takes the ethereal cloud-like thinking into very tactical, tangible, clear steps. Because as I said before, the clearer you are, the faster you'll go. So once again, if you've enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe to the channel. I've got hundreds of other videos to help you build a thriving health business and just kick ass in life. And again, if you want a copy or more of the Focus Planner, you can grab it at the link in the description. And if you've liked this kind of stuff, you're going to want to check out the next video where I hook you up with how to build a $1 million coaching business if that's your goal this year.